And tonight on PM Express, fresh revelations that is compounding issues for Health Minister Meno, who has since begun a 2-week leave in the middle of the Sputnik V brouhaha. You'll recall the Minister Meno testified at the parliamentary probe that the middleman Sheikh Al Maktoum is one who approached Ghana. Well, it turns out that it was rather the other way around. Tonight, we have cited letters from the Bank of Ghana, the Controller and Accountant General, which suggests the Health Minister is clearly aware of the payments that were made. We have copies we'll share with you on PM Express, but also have the conversation about whether a refund of the money exonerates the minister from all the legal prosecutions that his conduct has given rise to. Should we pardon him because he says he was frustrated? But even that, should he still be at post? Because there are many who say his continuous occupants of that position casts a bad image on the country. Plus, just before I walked into the studio, there are also revelations that the call for the middleman Sheikh Al Maktoum to pay all monies paid to him back, refund all of that and not part, has become a matter that is also brewing, because the Supreme Court actually supports that the middleman Sheikh Al Maktoum must pay all the monies paid to him by the Health Minister. How are we going to retrieve this? We have the answers for you on PM Express. So this is what we are asking, and let's look at the pressure that is intensifying for the Health Minister to resign as he begins his 2-week leave. Now, there are calls for the President to not only sack the Health Minister, but also to let him feel the full rigors of the law. But of course, you know, he's still in office. The middleman in the Sputnik V contract, Sheikh Al Maktoum, has since responded to that August 2 letter from the Health Ministry asking him to refund monies paid to him. Well, in that response, he says he will refund the monies, but he says it's part of the money that is going to be refunding to the government of Ghana and not all. This is where the contention is tonight, because the calls are that he must refund all monies paid to him. Now, it does appear that it's the Health Minister that approached Sheikh Al Maktoum and not the other way around, as purported by the minister during the parliamentary probe. You all saw it on television live broadcast when he said it was the middleman that approached Ghana, but that's incorrect. The minister signed a contract 2 months before getting in touch with the Russian government. You remember, he talked about the fact that they had looked everywhere, they couldn't get the vaccines. And of course, it then shows that he did not approach the Russian government, where the Sputnik V is originating from. Now, let's see the responses that are coming from Al Maktoum. He confirmed a balance amount of $2.47 million to be refunded to the government of Ghana. He went ahead to demand for the bank details in order to commence the refund process. We've also seen letters from the Bank of Ghana and the Controller and Accountant General Department, April 1st, 2021 and March 31, 2021, both respectively confirming the payment of the $2.85 million to Sheikh Al Maktoum. This was 50% advance payment for the supply of 300,000 doses of Sputnik V vaccines. Now, the minister says 20,000 of that has been supplied. You remember the questions that have come up. The minority chief whip has been questioning where those vaccines are. I mean, when did we receive the 20,000 even that we're talking about? Where is it? He's asking those questions, but this is the background. On 3rd March, we're supposed to receive 15,000 to be delivered to us. So that was delivered. End of March, 185,000 out of the 300,000 that wasn't delivered. In April, 300,000 out of 600,000 that was not delivered. May, 600,000 out of 1 million not delivered. So these are the Sputnik vaccines that we're supposed to get for the country. And in June, 1 million out of 1.485 also not delivered. Sputnik V brouhaha, we are asking whether the refund of the monies by Sheikh Al Maktoum exonerates the Health Minister. When I return from the break, I'll introduce to you my guests who have answers to all the questions you want to ask. Stay with me. Welcome back to PM Express. I'm lucky to be joined by Martin Kpebu, who is a lawyer. He joins me in the studio. Good to see you. And also joining me via Zoom is Franklin Kujo, who is president and CEO of Imani Center for Policy Education. Also from the other end is Vitus Azim, who is an anti-corruption campaigner. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Let me start with you, Martin Kpebu. Of course, you've been leading the campaign for, number one, the minister to resign. Number two, for him to be prosecuted for breaching a number of laws and also telling lies to no mean than a committee of parliament. Today, we are receiving a response from Al Maktoum, who is a middleman in that vaccine deal. He says he will refund the money, but of course, he's not going to refund all.
That's where there's a problem.
That's where there is a problem, because the issue about he must pay all the sum that was paid to him and not take out what he wants to take out and give us the rest.
That's correct, Aisha. You got it right in your introductory remarks. That's what the Supreme Court said. The Supreme Court says that if a person, a company, enters into a contract, that's an international person or company, enters into a contract with Ghana government without seeking parliamentary approval, no rights will flow from such a contract.
Okay.
Because you see, the Supreme Court, and that was in the case of Amidu versus this Waterville, Isofutun, and the rest, is because the Supreme Court is saying that if we are not careful, the public servants and all those involved will take opportunity to indirectly do what they are prohibited from doing expressly.
Okay.
I think straight away we should look at the what do you call it? What the Supreme Court said under that. It says that, yeah. Good. So the context, since we cannot read everything, the context is that the Supreme Court was looking at the point that, okay, even if the contract is void, as you mentioned in your introductory remarks, and the person has worked, which we usually call quantum merit or something like that, at least pay him for what he has done. Okay? Yes, that's the common law principle.
Okay.
But the court is apprehensive that if we are not careful, people will continue working, especially if they know they don't have the approvals. You can start work, knowing very well that once you work,
you will be paid.
Hell or high water, you will be paid. So the court is keen to stop it. So they say, look, for us, once you breach Article 181 Clause 5, that is to say, if you are an international person coming, nothing should be paid. So this is what the court says. It should not be legitimate to evade, you see, this nullity by the grant of a restitutional remedy. Yeah, so that's what they were talking about, what I've said. Or maybe if it's, let's start this way.
Okay.
A contract which breaches Article 181 Clause 5 of the Constitution is null and void, and therefore creates no rights. Let's repeat. A contract which breaches Article 181 Clause 5 of the Constitution is null and void, and therefore creates no right. See their earlier decision in Attorney General versus Faro Atlantic, 2005-2006, Supreme Court, and Attorney General versus Balkan Energy, 2012. It should not be legitimate to evade this nullity by the grant of a restitutional remedy. So if the thing is void, we shouldn't say, oh, you've worked, so we should pay. No.
So in this instance, Sheikh Al Maktoum bears the brunt of not getting his money. I mean, that should be none of our business because the contract was null and void ab initio.
Excellent. And then the court goes on, there's this statement here saying that such international persons should be careful when they want to enter into contracts with the government of Ghana. This is what the court says. It says that the requirement under Article 181, Clause 5 of the 1992 Constitution that international business or economic transactions to which the government of Ghana is a party should be approved by Parliament has a purpose. And it should be made clear to government and its partners that non-compliance with the requirement directly or indirectly will have consequences.
Okay.
You see it? Will have consequences. That's it.
Now, so the money is already with Sheikh Al Maktoum.
Yeah.
How do you foresee that he would just pick up the money that we've given to him and return it to us because our laws disagree that he should take part of the money, for the vaccines that he's already supplied to us? How easy will that be?
So, he's a shrewd businessman. So I expect that, I think he's the same person, the Ameri deal. We extended it for him several years, right?
Great.
So as a shrewd businessman, they say you have to give up, is it prattle to catch a whale, something like that. So this money, is small. Okay. So as a shrewd businessman, if I were him, I'll return everything because he gets more in the Ameri deal, which has more years. So the bottom one word is that it depends on bargaining power. And in this case, considering that he's making more money through the Ameri deal here, it's just smart. This one is no-brainer. Any wise businessman would just quickly return 300 and something thousand. That's packet change.
But how complicated does this make the case of the health minister?
Oh, yeah. So that makes it even worse for him. Every time a new development comes, then it just sinks him in further. Initially, he's been digging in his heels. We've been saying, Mr. Menu, please go, please go. He didn't listen. Now you see that with every new development, he's looking bad, worse, and it's just the worst of it all. Okay? Because now you see that he's ended up giving Al Maktoum a big bill, because 300 is sometimes, when I say big, relatively, because it's Mr. Ajimamenu's fault. Yeah. You see? Yes, so now Al Maktoum will have to cough up all of the money, all of it.
That was paid to him, the over 16 million Ghana cedis.
Yes, yes, and most especially, initially from their letters, he was going to deduct $300 and something thousand. Okay. Now that we've seen that, no, the Supreme Court says he should bring all of it back. It means, he
has to bring all of it back. And that rather makes the health minister, his issue complicated because, Sheikh Al Maktoum can decide that he will not pay, even though he has other businesses. That's a decision that he should take. Yes. But of course, there's a good news about he accepting that he would refund the money. Does that exonerate the health minister? Does that give him the breather to stay back in office?
Okay, not at all, but let's clarify. When he said he would refund the money, that's minus what he thinks he supplied. Exactly. So that 300, he intended to keep.
Yes, he intends to take the part.
Yes, but now, please, so the health minister has to write a new letter tonight.
To him.
Yeah, he should write, if somebody is near Mr. Ajimamenuh, please tap him that he should get his lawyers, they should double check. At least I've checked it before coming, maybe just in case I'm wrong, but that's why I brought it. I've sent it around. It's clear. It's clear on his face. So tomorrow he has to write a new letter. So, or is it tonight? So that that even the balance, that 300 and something thousand, though, he should just bring back all of the 2,850,000. Great. So that's why I say that it's making him look even worse. Okay. Perhaps if he had gone from day one, you see that this money, it would have been paid. Because, as the case keeps, as he keeps getting traction, then new angles emerge. We are all very busy. You pulled me out of a meeting to come here. Yeah. So it was even Ernest Menu who asked me the question. I said, come on, Ernest, what are you talking about? And I said, wait, let me check a few Supreme Court decisions. And you see it. Okay. So you see that the more this case gets traction, then the more angles emerge, and then the more Mr. Ajimamenuh is sinking. Common sense. Over a month ago, we said, just go. He wouldn't go. He thought he could ride this storm. Oh, I'll ride the storm. Now the storm appears to be riding him.
Let me bring in Mr. Vitus Azim. I want to believe that you've been following this issue and, of course, the controversy that has greeted this deal. Are you one of those who subscribe to the calls for ministers to resign or be fired by the president? The health minister.
I think where we have reached, there's no alternative. Either he resigns or the president fires him. Because you see, even the refund of the money that you are talking about, I remember that he said that the 20,000 that they got, he saw it as a sample. Okay. Now the supplier is saying that he's going to deduct the cost of that from the money that we have already paid him. So why there's so much inaccuracies in what he said that is not enough. I mean, that is more than enough for him to go, because as a respectable person, a member of parliament and a minister of state, there shouldn't be such inaccuracies in whatever he's telling Ghanaians and parliament. So I think he should go.
He should go. But there's also the bit about prosecution and the issue of the special prosecutor. Is this something that you want the special prosecutor to take up?
Yes, I think that the report of the parliamentary committee is not enough to talk about prosecution. So there will be need for further investigations to find out the corruption aspect of it. Was this a planned thing, transaction, for people to benefit from the transaction? That's where he's abusing his position for personal gain. So we now need, even if he resigns or he's fired, we now need to look at that. And that's where the special prosecutor will come in. It doesn't necessarily have to be the special prosecutor, that the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, they can come in. You have IOCO, they can come in. So I think that should be the next. And whether he resigns or he's fired or not, there's still that need for the next step of investigation into the possible corruption involved.
All right. So, Mr. Franklin Cudjoe, Imani hasn't spoken about this issue. I mean, this is quite unlike Imani. What's your own reading of all of this?
Well, that's not quite right. My vice president was on your sister network not long ago, calling for the head of Ajima Menu, and I have been on the call as well, asking if the president is happy with the performance of his minister. Sometimes you will not get statements like that collectively from the institution, but the principals of the institution have spoken.
All right.
Look, we all knew this was going to end in tears from day one. The moment Sputnik was mentioned, we knew that per the arrangements globally, this was going to end in tears. And it's not just Ghana. I think there's a storm brewing in a few other African countries as well. But you see, for me, what surprises me is the extent to which this was being defended even before we got here. You recall when the ministers and the assigns were saying, well, they haven't paid any money. No, I don't think the minister said that at the time. These assigns were vociferous in this defense, that no money had been paid, and we all loved the story because we said, well, somehow the public purse has been protected. But every step of the way, you see that the story gets yarned around mysticism. You can't put a finger to the story. And as my good lawyer says in the studio, that complicates matters of the health minister. I'm beginning to ask whether this should not be a first case for the special prosecutor, and indeed whether the president is happy with his own minister. I don't know whether the announcement of the leave is supposed to tell us that, well, maybe there's too much fire, and so let me run for cover for a little bit. But I'm interested in making sure that we get every dime that was paid to the sheikh. The fact of the matter, though, is I'm not entirely sure. Even if the sheikh has other business in Ghana, he's pretty bound to refund everything. Because don't forget, he did send, I think, about 20,000 doses to us, even though we don't know where those doses are really. So if there's any call for all payment to be made, minus what the sheikh says it is due him, if the law says it should be refunded, then I'm sure the minister has to be surcharged, and then he needs to do the refund. But every step of the way, some of us are not surprised any longer when it comes to this procurement shenanigans.
Okay.
So that ministry has been involved in too many procurement shenanigans. That's why maybe you haven't heard us say anything. You recall that we said a lot about the anti-snake serum when the PPA found the ministry wanting and actually advised the ministry to go ahead with the tender, but the ministry decided to cancel the entire tender.
Okay.
So we are also quite perplexed, and so it's as if in this country, when you speak about issues, the more you speak about it, the more it gets done. So for me, I wasn't surprised, one, that the Russian deal was going to end in tears. We knew from day one this was going to happen. But the WHO had warned countries that were procuring medicines, vaccines through third middlemen to be very careful. And of course, Russia, of all places, by the design of that country's vaccine policy, they don't particularly deal directly with states. Even if they do, it's not so open. They will deal with middlemen. That's how come the sheikh got involved.
Okay.
But the middlemen have consequences, like you've seen. So, surprise, surprise, no surprise here at all.
So to what extent would civil society like you go to ensure that this matter is brought to a closure? Because you talked about how you would insist that we get every dime paid to the middleman.
I get the money, paying back the money is crucial at this stage.
Okay.
And of course, the government infractions must also be investigated, because I think there's been one too many for that ministry. And my good friend Ajima Menu must be tired of it all. But I don't think leave is the answer, really. He should be able to face the bullets. And I'm sure he's pretty much strong enough to do that. So don't forget, he's been in this stead before as chairman of the accounts committee,
Public
the equally
accounts
sanctioned person, public accounts committee. I mean, he's sanctioned people who had done similar. And so if he's found himself in the same soup, I don't think pleading insanity or pleading not being able to think properly is an excuse at all, especially when every step of the way they were warned that be careful. And then every step of the way, his signs were telling us that, oh, no money has been paid. Only for, I don't think the minister himself probably knows how the processes got involved. I think he just decided that let's go and buy these medicines because people were dying anyway. The fact of the matter is that it was quite annoying to hear his signs at the time telling us that if anybody knows where we can procure the vaccines at $10, we should come and tell them, and that they are ready to procure it at even $30 per pop. You know, that type of bravado doesn't help the situation here at all. Otherwise, one would have said, well, let's refund the money and let's let sleeping dogs lie. But unfortunately, his science dark is spit.
Mr. Kwebu, and of course, we're talking about the prosecution part of this whole thing. We've indicated how he has breached procurement laws, he's breached parliamentary procedures, and he's told lies to Parliament. Yes. You've asked the public to actually petition Parliament to look into the perjury. But with all these fresh revelations, and mind you, the president hasn't spoken about this. The minister who everyone is calling for his head, Occupy Ghana, the minority in Parliament, I mean, from all angles, calling for his head, is still in office. And he has the luxury of taking 2 weeks leave to come back in 2 weeks. I mean, what other avenues are there for the public to demand accountability?
Aisha, the first one, I think the public being for this Mr. Ajimamenu's blood, it's not over yet. You see the crescendo, the anger is still rising. We are not done. Okay. We are not done, because with every passing moment and new angles of this case emerging, the public anger is still building. So I think somewhere along the line, the president would probably listen.
Okay,
yes,
so with the sanctions or with all the laws that he has breached, I mean, I want to understand what kind of sanctions exist in the law for Ms. Ajimameno.
So now that the Supreme Court has said all of the money should be brought, you see, if some of it, the 300 and something thousand, is not brought in, it means the number one law he'll be facing for criminal prosecutions will be causing financial loss
to the state.
Causing financial loss to the state. That's section 179A of the Criminal Offences Act. And that one has fines. The sanctions are that he'll be fined, and then for jail term, so either the fines or a jail term of a maximum of 10 years.
Wow.
So fines, and then up a jail term of a maximum of 10 years. So if it be 1 year, 2 years, you remember Ibrahim Adam and those people, they went to jail. I think they got 2 years, some 3 years. Yes, so that's the first law. Then apart from that, also, to the extent that he signed this agreement and committed the state, okay, without proper authorization, the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921, Section 96, one of it, also makes it a crime. Says that when a person, a public officer, okay, a person acting in an office or employment connected with the procurement or control of government stores or the collection or management or disbursement of amounts from the public purse, okay, commits, so when, makes an unauthorized commitment. You see, unauthorized, so the agreement is signed. It was unauthorized, resulting in a financial obligation. So this one doesn't even say there should be a loss, meaning that if you don't follow due process, you are headless. You go and sign with a cabinet approval, parliamentary approval, and those ones. That in itself.
Meaning that even if Sheikh Al Maktoum agrees to pay all the monies paid to him, he will still face this.
Perfect. Yes.
Okay.
This one is to teach people who are heedless, would not follow due process. Yes. This one teaches them a lesson.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
And the perjury?
And perjury. So perjury, we have the option, that's the Section 210 of the Criminal Offences Act, to make a report to the CID or take it to Parliament, because when it's for Parliament, that's Article 122 of the Constitution, and then Section 29 of Act 300, that's the Parliament Act. It makes it clear that if you lie, you see, the Act 300 even says it doesn't need to be under oath.
Under oath, but in this instance, it was under oath.
So that even makes it worse. I mean, so it says when you give false evidence to Parliament, whether under oath or not, it is perjury, and that's a contempt of Parliament. Okay. And then that's the same thing stated in
the
Article
Constitution
122. Yeah, so the charges there, I'm sure there are more.
And what are the sanctions?
Yeah, so Parliament, he could be reprimanded, he could be suspended, or expelled totally from Parliament. And this one is quite brazen. I think this one could be heading for expulsion, because you see, we all make mistakes. Yeah. But your mistakes are pointed, and then he keeps digging in his heels. He keeps digging in his heels. That's so brazen, very, very brazen. That's where, I mean, he could get into trouble.
It's quite interesting how this whole thing is revolving. But Mr. Vitus Azim, do you believe this is just symptomatic of the bigger issue of procurement in the public service that must be addressed immediately? And if so, how?
I believe that this is a bigger issue than just the normal problems that we see, and it's beyond the Minister of Health. For me, the present silence. You know, at the beginning, some people, like the special advisor on health at the president was also there defending. They have all gone silent. That gives me the impression that it goes beyond just the Minister of Health and goes beyond the breach of the public procurement laws. So that's why some of us are calling for further investigation after whether the minister resigns or he's fired. There's need for further investigation to find out, to look at the corruption aspect of it, because it could be more than just the minister. The correspondence that we have seen, the chief director writing and all that, and the minister has told lies about 3 times on this investigation. So he probably has just accepted responsibility to cover the government or some other colleagues of his. And that's why I think that there's a need for further investigation.
And for you, you think that there are other public officials who are culpable in this?
Yes, that's my belief. I've no evidence, but I think that it goes beyond just the Minister of Health.
What do you think, that there are others who are culpable in this, Mr. Kwebu?
Yeah, right now, from the way the paper trail is going, it's beginning to rope in other people. It looks like the first person that this thing is now catching is the finance minister. Because you can see that the requirements that you see, when they ask that what do you call it, the LC be done. Okay, so the LC was the proper mode of payment per the agreement. So at what point did they then decide that they will pay by cash?
Okay.
The international SWIFT transfer they did, and the money being received on the 13th of April. Yeah, so the finance minister has questions to answer. Finance minister has questions to answer. So between the two of them, yeah, I think the finance minister should come clean on this matter. Yeah, we've given him the benefit of the doubt. I think he should take advantage before more evidence begins to rope him in. Yeah, it is in his own interest.
Okay, so this is a matter that has just started, and I'm not sure it's ending soon. I'll take a break on PM Express. When I return, I'll be finding out what for civil society, for instance, for Mr. Martin Kwebu and the public, what will be a satisfactory, the satisfactory way of dealing with this matter? I mean, to bring closure to this controversy. Stay with me. Welcome back to PM Express, and we're discussing the unfolding issues of the Sputnik V procurement, which has since been terminated, and the issues that are coming up. Tonight, we are finding out that monies paid to Sheikh Al Maktoum by law must be refunded in full, not in part. Now, let me come back to you. For you, what would be satisfactory for you in terms of ending this controversy?
Yeah, so for as human beings, okay, sometimes not even very often when a matter arises, emotions are high, so we have certain expectations, and then with time we vary our expectations. So for now, at a minimum, Mr. Ajimamenu should leave. When he leaves, then we'll have some time for sober reflection and see whether we want to press these other charges, because as for the criminal offenses, there are many now. There are many, and then the contempt in Parliament, all those, you see. So as a first step, he should go. Finance Minister should come and explain his role as the net is fast roped him in. Then we will, see the other people beyond the Finance Minister. When we get the whole picture, if it looks like a cartel, then it looks like we'll just have to press the other charges so that we can sort this thing out once and for all. So one day at a time, let Mr. Ajimamenu go now. Finance Minister should come up. Let's see what else is in there. Then the person behind Finance Minister, and then we will see how to conclude.
Mr. Franklin Kujo, for you, what will be satisfactory in terms of ending this controversy?
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. Well, first things first, though. I think the matter of the should I call the tenure of the minister is pretty much in question right now, and the president has to make that call immediately, because clearly speaking, he's the appointer, and clearly there have been many issues bedeviling that ministry. I'm not going to say that because we were party to some of the issues that dogged the ministry from the beginning of his tenure, then all of a sudden I'm happy. I'm not. But I'd like the president to have a sober reflection and decide whether his mantra of saving the public purse or protecting the public purse based on satisfactory procurement performance over and above the previous administration is in itself whether it still holds water. I mean, if he answers those questions, then he whatever decision he takes, well, it's between him and his God. But I like to say that there are bigger questions about procurement that we need to deal with in this country. And yet again, we are faced with another test of it. We have said time with that number that the procurement reform is simply not just the whole idea of having what I call the preference for what's it called? They have this procurement law, but they tell you that because of the exigencies, they need to use a single. They need to source it from single.
Sourcing.
Well, sole source.
Yes.
Good. It's a single source is the technical word.
Yeah, sole sourcing, which has pretty much become the standard practice in the various ministries. If that's the case, then we should never even have any procurement systems at all, because it beggars belief, really, that anytime we are faced with a procurement problem like the one we have, we tend to dodge under the umbrella of what I call the sole single source proprietorship. And I think it is a wrong approach to dealing with procurement. There are bigger issues. Was it not Atta Mills who decided that, late Atta Mills, that given the level at a certain point, at a certain level, in terms of the quantum of money involved, certain procedures would have to be adopted before the procurement is passed for every ministry that wants to procure goods or service.
Okay.
I think we can be bold and ask ourselves questions. We can be bold and demand that if we are procuring a service or a good which is in excess of about 100,000, we can decide maybe $300,000. It has to be open. Everybody needs to see the tender, including subcontractors. Anybody could bid at all. And in actual fact, we should also demand that when assessing such contracts or bids, the evaluation panels are different and not the same as we normally see for most of the ministerial purchases that we are accustomed to. So there's a lot to be said about procurement in this with this problem. But I guess, as Martin Pebu suggests, one thing at a time.
Mr. Vice Azim, is this something that you subscribe to with regards to procurement and also with best practice? All right, we lost Mr. Vice Azim. We'll be trying to bring him back to wrap up with him. But Mr. Martin Kpebu, that's the point that Franklin Cudjoe is making about procurement. What's your own what's your own stance on this one? Having to, when we are going to procure something, we need to make it public for everybody to see what's going on. What's your stance on this?
Yes, so, you know, under the Procurement Act, as is stated, yes, there are exceptions. This single source, or otherwise also known as sole sourcing. Yes, it's allowed in certain circumstances when there's an emergency like this. I remember last year, these issues were raised, you know, with the feeding and the rest. So we saw that there were issues. So even there were programs like this where we say, hey, in matters like this, just announce it publicly. Just announce it publicly. It helps. You don't know who may have an idea, and then the person may come to the ministry and offer some expertise. I mean, what does it hurt? This country belongs to all of us. I don't know why suddenly people who don't know everything, when they get into government, they think they know everything. We mentioned it. I remember I was on some program, this procurement, we say to be safe, just announce it. And you know, even in section 40 of that act, it gives provision that under certain circumstances, publish it in the bulletin. Sometimes we can be more proactive, we can be innovative, think outside the box. Now look, this country belongs to all of us. You want to do your single source procurement or sole sourcing, publish it in the newspapers, radio, TV. Let people come and offer their, expertise. You say no. Now I see where it's landed us. There was, I mean, it's obviously, you see, out of all the lies it tells me, the one that's even beginning to look more egregious is the fact that he had signed a contract on the 9th of March. Then about 2 months later, you refer to it. That was when he then sought to look for the Russian government through the ministry. I mean, it was like, what is this? And you see, when the Attorney General's opinion also came, he said he saw it after. So once you saw that this thing was illegal, you didn't have to sit. He didn't take any proactive steps. At least he hasn't shown. When he went to the committee, he could have shown that these are the steps he took to try to mitigate. But no, he was digging in his heels, I see he's sinking.
And this is where we are. Mr. Franklin Cudjoe, the bit about the letter we've received today and the fact that the Supreme Court has said point blank that monies that should be paid to Ghana shouldn't be in part, it must be in full, the sum of money that was paid to Sheikh Al Maktoum. I mean, from now till tomorrow, which is a working day, what do you expect to see from the minister?
Well, international SWIFT wires typically take less than, about 24 hours. And so if the letters you've seen are anything to go by, if the commitment of the Sheikh is to be believed, then we should be receiving that money tomorrow. I'm not too sure it will be in full because, as it is, some parts of the contract have been performed. I still maintain that I don't think the Sheikh we may be able to refund everything because I think they supply 20,000 vials or so. Question is, if the Supreme Court says that all the money ought to be retrieved because the contract is not recognized, then I suspect that the person who entered into the contract on our behalf would have to show that particular financial burden. But otherwise, international wires should allow that within 24 hours, at least by Thursday morning, the money should hit the account. And this is a lesson in humility. I suspect that I'm sure the president will take it on seriously. That whenever people complain about certain infractions regarding certain matters involving certain ministries, he should at least he should be open to listen a bit. In the past, he's not been particularly charitable with some of us when we've raised these issues. Remember from the drone matter, the way the drone services were procured, all the way to the anti-snake venom, and all of those matters pertaining to the ministry.
All right, so that's Franklin Cudjoe. He's president and CEO of Imani Africa. Is Vitus Azim back? If he's back, we can now. All right, so he's trying to make the point about the role that the president plays in this whole thing. In fact, I mean, if he says a word, I'm sure that will settle the matter for now. But I know you're not a health expert, but how does all of this affect us? Our fight against COVID-19?
Obviously, with the health minister embroiled in this kind of messy deal, you know, it's creating confusion. Yes, because definitely people will be wondering that, hey, will the schedule, that is to say the vaccines that are scheduled
all the schedules have failed. I mean, they were not delivered.
Yes, and the ones that are to come, okay, in August and all, will they come? You know, when your top manager is in trouble, when the company is in distress, obviously stakeholders will also be scared. So psychologically, it's not looking good at all. It's not good. That's how come he just has to leave the scene. Then we get new management. So by the appointment of new management alone, it gives confidence that, oh yeah, something is good is about to happen, or that the old rot and all that has been done away with. So for the optics, symbolically, psychologically, we'll need new management at the health ministry.
But would new management also help our fight, knowing that, I mean, these are the people who've been there, who've been dealing with the issues, so continuity?
Oh, that's why there are handing over notes and all that. Yes, so the health minister, the chief director, all the persons who are involved in this just have to go. Yeah.
This is something that we'll be watching and keeping our eye on. Of course, Franklin Cudjoe made the point that from now till tomorrow, the minister must make efforts to retrieve all the money, though he doubts Sheikh Al Maktoum will agree to actually pay all the money to us. But of course, this is what is unfolding. And we'll be looking at how this pans out. Franklin Cudjoe, I'm told, has joined us back. Just complete that for me, because you're making a very valid point about the role that the president plays in this matter.
Yes, I was just making the point that the president needs to take a hard look at what had happened. If you can hear me well, I think your network is
loud and clear.
Finicky.
It's yeah.
Well, as I was saying, the president needs to take a hard look at the whole setup when it comes to procuring services that are very crucial for the country.
Okay.
It should never be embroiled in this type of controversy at all. And I think he can start from trying to ask his ministers whether in the next couple of years they plan to procure services that are in multi-million dollars, for which some better approach ought to be adopted, rather than what seems to be the command control type of behavior, which then leads us into this type of quagmire. I mean, to think that the health minister is supposed to protect our health, I was procuring vaccines from persons that probably did not know whether the vaccines were going to be water or poison. Pleading that you couldn't think properly is the first sign of actually having failed.
I'm grateful for your time, Mr. Franklin Kujo. He's president and CEO of Imani Center for Policy Education. Martin Kwebu is a lawyer, and he's a friend of Joy News. Thanks so much for coming.
You're
I'm
welcome.
extremely grateful. And Vitus Azim also joined us via phone. Thank you so much, Mr. Vitus Azim, for your time. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of our programs.